How do you know that?
Netflix just dropped a new teen slasher, which might be perfect for wrapping up the spooky season, if you're looking for some mindless fun. Ever since Time Cut was announced, reactions have been quite mixed, mainly because Totally Killer was a similar time-traveling slasher that reigned on Prime Video just last year. In Totally Killer, Kiernan Shipka's character goes back to the 80s to save her mom's friend from a mass killer. Similarly, in Time Cut, Lucy goes back in time to stop a tragedy from happening to her family. Even though both the plots sound alike, Time Cut was actually filmed during the pandemic, but its release got delayed until now. Directed by Hannah McPherson, it centers on a heartfelt story of two siblings connecting in unusual circumstances, though this focus on their relationship pushes the horror elements into the background. Still, the entire time-traveling fiasco and suspense build-up sort of keeps you guessing right up until the end. With that being said, let's not waste another minute and get right to discussing who the Sweetly slasher of Time Cut is, or how Lucy even manages to stop him.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Sweetly is a town suffering from the curse of a serial killer. Time Cut actually begins on April 18, 2003, with Summer Field heading into a barn for a high school party in her quiet hometown of Sweetly, Minnesota. But this is not just any ordinary gathering, as the town has been on edge, grappling with the terrifying threat of a serial killer being on the loose. Given that 3 lives have already been lost, everyone around is walking on eggshells. 3 teenagers, Brian, Val, and Emmy, have been killed in just 2 days, rapidly spreading a shadow of fear over the town and prompting a strict after-dark curfew. But in defiance of the curfew and the authorities, and to honor their friends, the high schoolers are holding a party in the Hayshed barn. Spring fling is apparently a yearly tradition, and not even a looming tragedy can keep these teenagers from getting wasted. Now, even though she was still mourning her best friend Emmy, Summer showed up at the party, as she could not sleep, and what better solution than to attend a rager at a remote barn, while there's a deranged killer on the loose. While going in, Summer is greeted by her friend Quinn, but is quickly pulled away by Ethan, her ex. Unbeknownst to the crowd though, the masked killer has also slipped into the barn. Meanwhile, Ethan makes a very tone-deaf roast for his dead friends, and disgusted by this, Summer steps out to dodge his advances. While applying her lip gloss, Summer soon realizes she's now become the killer's target. She runs and hides into an abandoned shed nearby, but eventually he catches up. Tragically, the masked murderer picks up a sickle and slashes her back, killing Summer and infamously commemorating himself as the Sweetly slasher. The film then fast forwards 21 years ahead, where we meet Lucy. It quickly becomes clear that Lucy is not very happy with her life and feels trapped in her dilapidated town. Even after she gets accepted into NASA's internship program, Lucy doesn't share this with anyone, except for her science teacher at school. Soon we find out that Lucy is Summer's younger sister. Even after all this time, the Field family is haunted by Summer's murder, as her parents have never really moved on. Lucy feels neglected and isolated in her own home, as her parents don't celebrate anything and are always stuck in their grief. Ever since she was born, Lucy has lived in the shadow of her sister's death, and to make matters worse, Lucy now has to turn down her incredible internship at NASA because her overprotective parents won't let her travel to Washington alone. After eating at Olive Garden, the Field family rides up to the barn to pay their respects to Summer's memorial. But things take a very strange turn when, struggling to cope with her situation, Lucy unexpectedly discovers a time machine in the old shed at the now abandoned Hayshed barn. When she turns on the machine, 2 antennas pop from the opposite ends, and a laser beam flashes at her, which catapults Lucy to 2003. Can Lucy handle 2003? As Lucy steps out of the shed, still reeling from the time machine's sharp laser beam, she realizes everything around her looks completely different. The Hayshed barn is no longer a rundown place. In fact, it was looking rather vibrant and alive, and the shops that had actually closed in her time are now bustling with activity. The town is no longer dilapidated, as Sweetly no longer looks like the AliExpress version of Gotham. Soon, Lucy quickly figures out that she has traveled back to 2003, specifically to April 16th, which was just 2 days before Summer was murdered. This is also the day the Sweetly slasher made his very first kill. Now, determined to change the course of events, Lucy's only goal was to prevent the killer from claiming any more victims. Despite the 2 decades that have passed, the police never solved the murders, leaving Lucy and everyone else in the dark about the killer's identity. Because of the lack of clues, Lucy's mission is tougher than we think, as she has to uncover the killer's identity before he starts his gruesome rampage and save the victims without ever revealing who she is. After tracking down her science teacher at the school lab, Lucy befriends finds Quinn, who seemed to know a lot about the tricks of time traveling. Quinn is the same guy who had been chatting with Summer earlier in the film, and Lucy ends up saving him from a group of bullies led by Ethan, who were trying to toss him into a nearby river, even though Quinn had repeatedly mentioned that he didn't know how to swim. After sharing a heartfelt conversation with the science nerd, Lucy opens up about how she's from the future. At first, Quinn is skeptical about Lucy's claims, but then she manages to convince him by showing him her smartphone, which is a clear piece of futuristic tech for someone living in 2003. Quinn is visibly amazed to realize that a 6-inch device can be a calling phone, a computer, a TV, a camera, and a music player. Still, Lucy keeps the serial killer information to herself for now, and sets out to stop the murderer on her own. At first, she tries to take Quinn's advice, who's completely against the idea of someone from the future revealing their true self or playing with the reality of the past events, as it could create a paradox that could lead to the annihilation of the world itself. So Lucy takes his advice first and decides to meet Summer at their house so they can swipe her dad's keycard for the Sonar nuclear research facility that has the can of antimatter that could get her home. After reaching Summer's house, she comes inside to meet Quinn and Lucy. Now, Quinn was supposed to deliver Summer's chemistry homework, but instead he got the mathematics one. This is when Lucy offers to help Summer out, and she goes into Summer's house while Quinn drives away to get work. After going inside the house, Lucy meets her own parents, only 20 years before, during the time her sister was still alive. But the thing that makes her really sad is how different and happy they seem to be. Her parents don't look hopeless and sad in 2003. In fact, her mother cooks all the time with Summer, and her family spends a lot of time together, something that Lucy never had growing up. She and Summer then spend a lot of time bonding, as the latter gives Lucy a makeover that's more era-appropriate. After realizing what a good person Summer really is, Lucy asks her the same question she'd asked Quinn before, but this time she receives a different answer. According to Summer, if she ever knew something bad was going to happen to someone, she would try to prevent it, consequences be damned. Hearing this, Lucy remembers that the first murders of Brian and Val happened at the local shopping mall, so she rushes over before the horrific crime is set to unfold. Unfortunately, by the time she locates the right store, it's already too late, as Brian has already been killed by the masked murderer. However, Lucy manages to distract him long enough to save Val, at least for a little while. Now, Val was trying on new clothes and was understandably in shock after witnessing her boyfriend's brutal death and then being chased by a masked psychopath. While on the run, she struggled to keep up with Lucy and ultimately got stuck on the elevator, meeting her tragic fate. In a shocking twist, a security guard at the mall also falls victim to the killer while trying to catch him in the act, and this was a death that did not occur in the original timeline. Inevitably, Lucy felt devastated by this change, and once again, Quinn reminds her that this is exactly why tampering with the past can be so dangerous, because even with knowledge of the future, it can lead to unexpected branches of reality which they would not be able to control. Summer's threatening letter actually hit a major twist. In her original timeline, back in 2024, Lucy had entered her old sister Summer's room, which her parents kept just as it was when Summer lived there. Lucy never really knew Summer, as she was born after her sister's tragic death. As time cut unfolds, Lucy discovers what she had always suspected. Her parents had actually conceived her in an effort to cope with their grief over losing Summer. Unfortunately, this attempt to fill the void turned out to be a failure in many ways. Lucy's parents are emotionally distant, and their struggle to accept and move on from the loss of their first child profoundly impacts how she grows up. In her quest to learn more about her sister beyond the countless newspaper articles written about Summer and the other victims, Lucy decides to explore Summer's room, and while searching for clues to better understand her sister, she stumbles upon a folded piece of paper hidden under the wooden floor panels. It's a handwritten note addressed directly to Summer, and its contents suggest that Summer will never escape some burden and ominously warns her that she will regret whatever she did to deserve such a note. The letter is signed simply with the letter E, indicating it was sent by someone whose name starts with that letter. Naturally, Lucy suspected that the sender might be Ethan, Summer's ex-boyfriend, who she had dumped just days before her death. Ethan was also the police's prime suspect in the murders, as they believed he could be the Sweetly slasher. However, despite the suspicions, he had solid alibis during each of the killings, which meant he could never be charged. Anyway, circling back to the main plot, Lucy reveals to Summer that she's from the future and reveals that they're sisters. She shows her the note and mentions that she discovered that she had completely misunderstood its meaning. The note was actually sent to Summer by her best friend Emmy, who was not just her friend but also her lover. Summer and Emmy had developed real feelings for each other and dreamed of being a couple, and despite the social stigma they would face, the girls had made the brave decision to come out to their parents. While Emmy had gone through with it, Summer struggled to find the courage to tell others. This felt like a betrayal to Emmy, leading her to write this the note to Summer, reminding her that she would have to carry the weight of this secret for the rest of her life, and would surely come to regret it. Now, after revealing that Emmy was next in line to be killed by the Sweetly Slasher at the museum where she works, Summer, Quinn, and Lucy team up to go save Emmy from the murderer. After a lot of struggle, they actually manage to outrun the killer and take Emmy away to safety. Previously, Summer and Emmy were in the middle of an argument, but after this life-threatening incident, they reconciled. How does the time machine work? At times, the plot of Time Cut gets as tangled as its teen protagonist Lucy. As she tries to undo the serial killer's actions, she realizes she needs to return to her original time to avoid making things worse in 2003. However, to do that, she has to unravel the mystery of the time machine. Luckily, Quinn is there to help her, and together they discover that two separate elements, which they temporarily call Particle A and Particle B, must be brought together in order to trigger a temporal shift. This shift essentially alters the time around the machine to the desired date set on its console, allowing the user to travel forward or backward in time. Now, Particle A turns out to be a laser beam, while Particle B is rubidium, also known as antimatter. The laser beam is conveniently attached to the time machine, but Lucy and Quinn need to find the antimatter to get the machine working again. Lucy discovers that the time machine was actually developed by Sonar, a local nuclear research facility in Sweetly, which is where they would find the antimatter canister. Now, this is where the next twist of the movie comes. After saving Emmy, Lucy spends the night sleeping over at Summer's, where she lies about Summer having a bright future. Next morning, she discovers that if it were not for Summer's death, her parents would never go through the entire IVF fiasco to conceive Lucy, which means that if she saves Summer from the Sweetly Slasher, Lucy will not exist in the future, as her parents would never feel the need to take another child. Confused and clearly having a breakdown, Lucy steals her dad's Sonar keycard and goes up to Quinn's garage to check if he had any progress with the time machine. She also finds the love letter Quinn had written for Summer, expressing his undying love for her. But when he comes in and inquires if Lucy had told Summer about the impending doom that awaits her future, she breaks down and confesses that if Summer were to live, Lucy would cease to exist. Now, given Quinn was in love with Summer, he would not rest until he finds a solution to save them both. And after a lot of thinking, later that day, Lucy goes up to Summer and finally tells her the truth. Summer was weirdly calm about it and even assures her that it's okay for Lucy to want to live. Hearing this changed Lucy's decision, as she realized that with the aftermath of Summer's death, she was living a dead life in 2024 anyway. So to solve the issue at hand, Lucy sneaks into the facility with Quinn, only to discover that one of the canisters is missing. This shocking revelation means that the serial killer is actually from the future as well. Who is the Sweetly Slasher? While Lucy snuck into the Sonar facility, Summer prepared to attend the spring fling party, fully aware that she'd soon face the serial killer. Knowing that this might be her last night, Summer makes a toast at the party and embraces her sexuality openly by kissing Emmy in front of everyone. She then leaves to lure out the killer in the shed, and just as the Sweetly Slasher is ready to attack the teenager, Lucy and Quinn burst onto the scene, crashing the car into him. In a shocking twist, it's revealed that the Sweetly Slasher is actually a grown version of Quinn from the future. He had used the same time travel machine to seek revenge on those who made his teenage years a living nightmare, ultimately ruining his life. In the original timeline, without Lucy's intervention, Quinn had actually been thrown into the river by Ethan, leading to a moment of humiliation that haunted him forever. While the other kids' insults didn't bother him much, Quinn couldn't shake the memory of Summer laughing at him. Plus, in this timeline, Quinn confessed his feelings for Summer, and because she hadn't come out publicly, Quinn misinterpreted her rejection as a sign that he wasn't good enough for her. On top of this heartache, Quinn was dealing with his own struggles at home. His father had abandoned the family, leaving his mother so devastated that she stopped caring for him too. This left Quinn feeling isolated and alone. The traumatic experiences he faced during his teenage years ultimately pushed him down a dark path, leading him to become a criminally minded adult. Before Lucy discovered the time travel machine back in 2024, she had noticed a strange flash of light coming from the shed near the abandoned barn. That light was actually caused by adult Quinn using the machine to return to 2003. Once there, he put on a mask and started targeting everyone close to Summer, eventually leading to her death. Quinn always intended to return to his original timeline to avoid being caught or punished for his crimes. That's why he'd already stolen a canister of antimatter from the Sonar facility. In the original timeline, he successfully used the time machine again to get back to 2024, which is why the police were never able to solve the mystery of the serial killings. How does Time Cut end? In the end, Lucy's presence dramatically changes the course of events, as she manages to activate the time machine moments before the future Quinn is about to murder Summer. Lucy asked the present Quinn to take Summer out of the room, and as the laser of the time machine hit them, it brought Lucy and future Quinn back to 2024, where she ultimately kills him. Afterwards, she returns home, only to discover that her parents don't recognize her at all. Since Lucy successfully prevented Summer's death in this new timeline, her parents never thought about having a second child, meaning there was technically no reason reason for Lucy to exist. Faced with this reality, Lucy makes a bold decision as she decides to travel back to 2003 again, using the canister that future Quinn had stolen from the facility. Back in the past, Lucy settles into her life with her older sister and their parents, who are overjoyed to welcome her into the family, after learning that she saved Summer's life. At the end, the Field family finally feels whole and happy by merging the best parts of both timelines. With this fresh start, Lucy finally pursues her ambitions and even applies for the NASA internship. She gets accepted into the 2003 program, giving her the chance to fulfill her dreams. Since Quinn doesn't have to experience the humiliation and heartbreak that led him down a dark path in the original timeline, he continues to be friends with the Field sisters. Even if it was a one-time watch, for me, Time Cut is a pretty good Halloween flick. With that being said, what are your thoughts about this one? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.